Well, all right, guys, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Huh.
Um, you know, we're getting back at it here on Tuesday.
I don't think so.
Poppy, certainly wouldn't want us to stop. You know, parting words from him to both myself and Uncle Tim was, let them all know to kick some ass and take some names. So that's what we're here doing this morning, getting back at it. And celebrating the life of Gene Costello. Uncle Tim, you want to take it away?
Let's just have a moment of silence first.
Yeah.
First of all, I know how much each and every one of you loved him. And I can tell you, he loved every one of you back just as much. You know, my dad came from very, very humble beginnings. He was born in a tent in 1934 in Rockaway, New Jersey. He spent the first 7 years of his life living in a travel trailer. He comes from a gypsy origin. My grandmother was a fortune teller her whole life. His father was a boxer in the circus. He ended up training Brittany Spaniels and selling Brittany's and Beagles and hunting, and that was a big part of my dad's life. He went to Lemoyne High School, which later turned into West Shore High School, his senior year. Played football, basketball, and baseball, and was outstanding at every one of those sports. He was a great athlete. He went on to attend Gettysburg College, where he played football, and then later on Penn State, where he obviously became an avid fan, which probably everybody in this call knows, because there weren't many days that he didn't wear something with Penn State on it. For those of you that don't know, he had a tryout with the Philadelphia Phillies. He was that good in baseball. He got his real estate license in 1957 or 59, I think it was, working for Charlie Stoner Real Estate, which was owned by Bill Keeley, who built the Westover development. Later on, he moved over to Doherty and Twig. And in 1969, started a chain of pizza restaurants called Costi's Pizza and Spaghetti House. He owned restaurants in Pennsylvania and New Jersey until the mafia shut him down in New Jersey. Simultaneously, he bought a restaurant in Klein Village Shopping Center across from Harrisburg High named the Village Hofbrau, which later became Mickey Finn's. I started working with my dad as early as sixth grade when we had a big snowstorm. I think was the first time I went to work with my dad in sixth grade. And I worked at that restaurant throughout junior high and high school with him. And then when I graduated from high school, I got my real estate license at 18. And at one point in time, at that time, he had started a company called Cosmic Realty on Front Street in Harrisburg. And he had Cosmic Realty. It was Cosmic Realty, a new direction was the slogan. About a year later, it turned into Realty World Cosmic. And then from there, Realty World Cosmic turned into Costello Real Estate in 1985. From 1985 to 1992, we operated Costello Real Estate, at which time two of his best friends at the time, Jim Twig, who owned Doherty and Twig, and Jim Grandin, who owned Jack on Realtor, came into the office and tried to convince me and then my father to close down Costello Real Estate and go in with Jack on Realtor. So from 1992 to 1999, we worked at Jack on. Went through some very tough times because in 1992, we had hit an all-time low where it was the biggest commercial real estate recession that this area ever had. And there was over at the time 2 million square feet of vacant office space in the area. And we sat vacant for 2.5 years at $5,000 a month and thought we were going to lose everything, and damn near did. And that's when we went in with Jack on. Went through a few very rough years at that point in time with my dad. There were a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but we made a living and we did okay. Bobby Stevens would tell you he was with us the whole time. And then in 1999, I got called into a meeting where I was helping to develop assisted living facilities for Balanced Care Corporation. And my dad and I had a thing going where we were finding and developing assisted living facilities throughout the country. So I think it was January of 1999 or February. I got called into a meeting and they said the real estate investment trusts, the REITs, have now terminated all financing on assisted living facilities. They were being overbuilt throughout the country, and we're not going to be able to develop anymore. My dad and I had $150,000 pending that was supposed to be paid that quarter. We ended up with zero. Walked into the office, had Jack on, and opened up my drawer like we have down below at our office. And there was a flyer in there about a Mike Ferry seminar that was going to be held at the Penn Harris. I'm sure some of you people have heard this story. My dad wouldn't go with me. He said, Tim, we've been through this 1,000 times. We've been through sweat hogs at Jack on. We were through some Realty World training that we both participated in. And I went to the seminar and I sat in the back right corner, right by the doors, so that I could escape if I didn't like it. I stayed the whole time. Mike didn't make it. He was sick, and Tom Ferry showed up. I went back to the office that afternoon and told my dad, we need to do this. And again, he repeated, we've been through this 1,000 times, Tim. It's not going to be any different. I pulled out my credit card. I signed us up. And from that day forward, and that moment forward, my dad changed his life forever. He embraced the system. He embraced the challenge. Him and I and Jim Pedrick sat in the basement of this office at Jack on, practicing these scripts, which you all read and say, that's not me. I can't do that. That's not me. It isn't. You have to make it you. And we were trying these scripts, and our coach at the time was named Michael Byerly. She was from Reading, now lives in Las Vegas. And she said, just keep on going, guys. Just keep on going. You're just you got to learn these scripts. You got to internalize them. And we went from 40 deals to 80 deals to 120 to 150 to 200 deals. And my dad was a master at those scripts. He obviously proved that talking on the phone was worthwhile to get business. And if you don't believe that, all you have to do is read the 655 comments on Facebook, because damn near every one of those people on that board talked about how he called them. Like I said, he changed his life forever. He became more of a family man than he ever was. He worked hard. He had a lot of wisdom. He learned so much. He was started reading books. He stopped going to the bars. We used to call him, prior to 1999, Sierra Padre, because he has lived his life at the Sierra Madre. So before cell phones, we called him Sierra Padre, and I would call the bar line at the Madre to try to get him to come home. But like I said, he changed that day. He pretty much, other than socially, didn't take a drink. Not that he was an alcoholic, but he liked happy hour. And like I said, attended 4 seminars a year, practiced his scripts, role played. We would go to these seminars, and if you knew us now, we would be the first person at the Penn State game, but we'd also be the first two that left the game to get back to the RV. But at those seminars, we were the first person at the seminar and the last person to leave the seminar. That's how important it was to him to learn from all the seminars we attended, and we attended a lot. After every seminar, we would sit down and talk with one another and go over what we learned and what we could take away from that seminar. We learned an awful lot. I spent my entire life working for two people, my dad and Brad Hollinger, who ran Summer Splash Pool and Balance Care Corporation. Every day we talked about business, every day. We each knew what our job was and what we needed to do to be successful. Having been through multiple ups and downs in business, one day we were sitting here right in this office. He was sitting right in that chair. And I said to him, how did we do it, Dad? How did we get to where we are today? And he said, son, we were hanging out that window right there. And we had two choices: let go or pull ourselves up and make something of ourselves. And he did it every day, one day at a time, one agent at a time, and one deal at a time. And my God, did he build quite a legacy doing that. We all knew someday this was going to come. Nobody wanted it to. I'm sure you didn't either. He fought like hell to come back from having a 15-pound sarcoma cancerous tumor removed from his leg last January 8th, 2024. He was bound and determined to walk again. He went to rehab. Kathy and I had to pull him out of the first rehab because he had this hospital delirium, I think it's called, and he was hallucinating and everything else. And we got him into Vibra, and then we got him home. He built himself up to a point that he could literally walk without walker very well. I took him to Penn State games last year. I took him to the shore multiple times. He loved the shore. He loved the beach. We got him the chair that he needed to be comfortable in it. And as you all know, from the calls that we've been on over the last couple of months, his mind was sharp. He was sharp, and he was back, giving lots of great advice. About 3 weeks ago, Regina and I took him to the beach. And Regina and I have been laughing about this because he loved Netflix and he loved to watch series. And we were watching a series called Prison Break. And my mom was in her bedroom. It was about 10 o'clock. I normally go to bed at 9. We had watched, I think, 3 episodes. So that was 3 hours. And it was about 10 o'clock, I think, Regina, wasn't it? And he said, let's watch one more. Let's do one more. And I said, okay, Dad. And I did. And Regina was like, oh my God, I can't believe he wants to do one more. But it's what he wanted to do, and that's what we did. Came home from that trip. I think the following week, he had the strongest week that he's had since his surgery. He came home from that trip and worked every day until 4:30. In fact, when he was going home, when Ken was getting him out of the car, my mom was on the porch yelling, you're 90 years old. Why are you still going to work? He went to work because he loved it. He wanted to live his life doing what he liked to do, which was talk to all of you. I'm sure that each and every one of you has thought about the last conversation, the last voicemail, the last life lesson he gave you with your business, because he cared deeply about you and about our company and about our family. The following week, he took a shot at the doctor's office for pneumonia. He got sick the next day. We don't know what happened to him, whether the shot spurred something on. But regardless of after the shot the next day, he got sick. And he was in bed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And Saturday afternoon, we decided to call 911. We took him to Harrisburg Hospital. We sat in the waiting room, Kathy, Patty, my mom and I, and my dad, for 7 hours before the doctor looked at him. The nurse told us, I don't know, Kathy, if you're on here, the nurse told us that basically that there were 2 people in the whole waiting room was filled with people. But after 7 hours, there weren't a whole lot left. It was my dad and a 92-year-old lady. So a 90-year-old man and a 92-year-old lady. And they saw those 2 last. We basically, basically we're told they take the patients as like an importance, who's more important to treat, which is horrible. At that point in time, they gave him some IVs, they gave him some Tylenol, and they sent him home at 2 in the morning.
No.
And we had one hell of a time getting him into the truck. He was so weak because he hadn't eaten or drank pretty much that whole week. He was sick. Took him home at 2 in the morning, which was Sunday morning. He slept all day Sunday. On Monday, um, he said he needed to go to the bathroom. I had stopped over to visit him. I left. I think Regina reached out to me because Ken had reached out to her. I don't remember. And said, your mom and Ken can't get him up to go to the bathroom. So I got off the highway and I went back and I tried to pick him up, which I could do. I had him in my arms and he was stiff as a board. And there was no way he was going to stand to go to the bathroom. So I called 911 and he didn't really want to go, but Kathy and I wanted him to go. Took him to West Shore Hospital. He was seen immediately that day. No 7 hour wait, seen immediately. Got moved to a room that night. And the next day on Tuesday, we heard that he had a severe major infection in his leg that had been operated on with that cancerous tumor. The doctor came that night. She talked to us. And no, actually, that was the next night. That day in his regular room on the fourth floor, the next day, Ken's wife, Ken Diltz's wife, came and they had to call rapid response because he wasn't doing well. So they moved him to ICU right after the rapid response, where they gave him, is it nitro or whatever it is, to try to bring him back from some of the medicines. And they moved him to ICU where his doctor came that night. And you could see in her face, talking to Kathy and I and my mom, that she did not want to operate on him. So the next day, she came back. I think this is the way it went. And decided that they needed to try to clean out this wound. In order to do that, they had to put him on a ventilator, which is a very difficult thing to do. They put him on a ventilator, and they felt that his condition was so fragile, they didn't want to move him to the operating room. It was about 6 o'clock at night. They said, there's not enough staff down there. We're going to do the operation, a small part of it instead of the major part of it. And we're going to do it right here in ICU because there's more people if they needed more help. She did the operation. She cleaned out the wound the best that she could. So she cleaned it out the next day and he did okay. That was Wednesday. On Thursday, they decided that they weren't going to do a more extensive operation on him because they did some testing and they found that he had more cancer. Simultaneously, his heart was not doing well, and they thought that he might have had a heart attack at some point. So we had the infection, the heart, and now cancer. They decided to take the breathing tube out on Thursday to see whether or not he could breathe on his own, and he did. I was in the room when they pulled it out. It wasn't pleasant to watch. They pulled it out, and within maybe a half hour, he started talking very silently, very weak, but we could understand him. And he first talked to my sister, Patty, and he told her he loved her, and he told her he wanted to die. Well, she immediately broke down. She didn't want to believe that that's what he said. Throughout the next several hours, he talked to every person in the family, told them that he loved them, and told them one last life lesson. On his dying deathbed, he made it a point to give back one more life lesson to each member of our family, which was an absolutely incredible day to witness that and to hear that and to hear what he said privately to each one of us. At the end, like Brooke said in the beginning, he said, tell the office to kick some ass because he cared just as much about you guys as he cared about us. When he was finished with all of us, he slipped into more of an unconscious state. At that point, he never really reawoke. There were a few things that were said to him on Friday. I think he nodded a little bit. I reached out and I told Sabrina and Mike Ferry about the situation. They immediately, within minutes, recorded a video, which I held up to his ears, since Mike was such an important part of his life and changing his life, and played it for him. Before that, excuse me, on Thursday again, after he was done with all of us, we go back to that. My mom was one of the last people he talked to. And she did not want to let him go. She finally said to him, it's okay, Gene. It's okay. You can go. And he looked at her with us standing there. And he said, I love you. Thank you, Joan. Thank you. And then he slipped into that unconscious state. Friday was Good Friday, the day Jesus died, and the day he died. I want you all to know he deeply cared about each and every one of you just as much as he cared about us. We have to live life and we've got to move forward. Some of you aren't going to be able to attend his services, and that's okay. I know how much you care about him. I do. The outpour of messages that were posted on Facebook was something I never witnessed in all my life. Some of the stories that you've written to me about how he touched your life and the things that he has done for you were incredible. And I appreciate those stories, some of which I've posted about. He was a great man, a great father. He was good to our family, and he was good to all of you. We appreciate your loyalty to him and the company and moving forward. And we're going to all make it through this. It's going to be tough for a couple days. It's going to be tough. but eventually we'll get through it. We'll never forget him, and we'll never forget the life lessons that he's given us. If there's anyone who wants to share a story of how he affected you and what he did for you in your life, feel free to say it now. It's a lot easier to talk amongst our little group here than it would be in public. But we have some great stories. Kathy and I were talking about some of them today. He was a lot of fun. We had a lot of great times with him. Kathy said that somebody told, are you there, Kath? Kathy,
I'm here. I'm here.
somebody told you this morning. He taught us how to live and he taught us how to die with grace. Somebody told you that today.
Yes, first thing this morning.
You know, whether you're a believer in God or not, there's some incredible things that have happened to us as family members. I don't know if it's happened to you. I'll give you an example. When we left the hospital after he passed away, my niece went to her car, and right in front of her door on the ground was licorice, which my dad loved. My same niece, Brinley, yesterday was looking for a dress to go to a funeral. She typed in Nordstrom dresses. And let me tell you what it said. The first dress that showed up on her list was Poppy mid-dress. If that's not a sign that he's okay, I don't know what is. My nieces and nephews came over to my house last night. They were sitting on the deck, and there was a great big rainbow behind them. Some of the things that happened. Kathy, Regina, I can't remember some of the other things that have happened here. If you can just spark my memory, and I'll talk about it. But there are
Randy, are you there?
what-
Randy, we usually watch The Voice on Monday nights for a little bit. Instead, I walked in and he had American Idol on. And I just said, why do you have American Idol on? We usually watch The Voice. He said, you need to come here. You need to look at the cups that everybody was drinking from. And the three stars were drinking from cups with Poppy written on them.
Yeah.
You remember any of the other ones, Regina, that you can remind me of? Just real quick.
Trying to think, I don't remember.
But these things have happened to us. And to me, it's a sign that he's okay. He's okay. 7 hours later, I found out yesterday after my dad passed, Don Slike passed away, who used to own Handy Markets. My dad and Don were great friends and did deals forever. And his son, Chris Slike, said to me, when he was calling to tell me his dad died, and I said, Chris, my dad died Friday night. His dad died Saturday morning. And he said, Tim, they're probably up there together doing deals already. Because that's the way they are. They're probably up there doing deals.
Tim, the one was when Aaron talked to the little boy at the baseball field.
Aaron, are you here?
Yeah.
Can you
So
tell the story?
we had went to visit Poppy, and he had it meant a lot to me because the day that Brett and I had went in the room to see him, and he did open his eyes, And you could tell that he was there and he was blinking and. So I went to baseball and I'm a team mom, so I'm in the dugout and this little boy comes over and I was like, where'd this kid come from? And the coach is like, oh, it's my other son. He was at first base. And I was like, oh, come on in. And I said, hey, I said, what's your name? And he said, looked at me kind of weird. And I was like, it's okay. What's your name? And he said, my name's Eugene. And I was like, really? And that I felt was a sign from God that Poppy was telling us that he was okay. I've never met a little 5-year-old that was named Eugene, and he just said it so graciously. And I said, well,
And
that's
showed up at that minute.
that minute. Yep. It's just little things.
I had shared a story with Morgan last night. Is Morgan Tressler on the call today?
No, she had a doctor's appointment she couldn't get out of.
She shared a story with me. I don't know if this part of it's on Facebook or not, about how she was intimidated about going on a listing appointment a few years ago for $1 million listing. And my dad said to her, Morgan, he puts his pants on the same way you do every day. Don't let him intimidate you. He puts them on the same way. And she got that listing, and she's done multiple other deals with that man. But his words of advice to her helped her get through her nervousness of going on that appointment. And I laughed and I said to her by text message, he gave the same message to me when I was in a junior in high school. We had a football game against State College at Cedar Cliff. And the guy I had to go up against name was Tim Scannell. He ended up playing for Notre Dame and then in the NFL. And he was huge, huge. I thought I was good. This guy was amazing. And I was so scared that whole day. And I had never been scared before to go up against this monster. And he, before the game, got me in the backyard as I was walking out the kitchen door. And he said to me, Tim, he puts his pants on the same way you do every day. Go out and do your job. And I did. And I went up against him. And believe me, I got hit by this guy so hard. It was the first time I ever saw stars in my life. I mean, my head was spinning. Today, you'd have been pulled out of the game with a concussion, but I stayed in the game. And I did my job. I did what he said. I did the best I could up against this guy. But like I said, I was scared to death. So it was funny that when I was 17 years old, he gave me the same advice he gave Morgan with the pants story. Anybody else have anything they want to share of a moment they had with Poppy?
Tim, I showed a dozen homes on Saturday, and I can't remember the last time I showed that many houses in one day. It's been a long time. And these clients came up, they're past clients' kids. And I popped one last listing. They gave me like 8 or 9 to look at, and then I picked 2 that I thought they might like. And we went and looked at all these houses. And the next day, they said, well, later that evening, they said, Kong, there's only one house that we really want to come back to, and we'll probably write an offer on it. And the house number on it was 322. And that's the last room at West Shore that I got to sit down with your dad, was room 322 on the 3rd floor.
That's the room he died in.
And I remember it very clear because 322 is the way we go to State College, the highway we take. It was his room, and I was just like, that's a sign from him that everything's gonna be okay.
I never even thought of that when you said that to me last night. But 322 is the way to Penn State.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
So Tim, my
Oh.
my phone's about to die. I'm
yeah,
I'm at the West Shore Farmers Market. I'm getting my car fixed across the street. And I just want to share, like, right when I started, like Steve and I, obviously we're at Thompson Wood for 35 years. And when we decided to close the business, his calls were the reason both of us said we're going with Gene, because he affected us in a way that, just the persistence that he had over however many years that was. And when I started there at your company, probably 6 months later, I was sat down with him and he said, "What's your system, Ken?" I said, "Well, Gene, I don't really have a system." He said, "I've been doing this for 35 years. I go to Flinchies a lot and I play golf a lot." And he goes, "Well, keep doing it." So, he didn't care. I mean, obviously, he would have loved me to do Mike Ferry and, Buffington, but he still, the calls that he made to me about family and, my grandkids, I'll never forget. Thanks.
thank you, Ken. Anybody else want to share anything before we close it up? The viewing is going to be Tuesday, the 29th at 3:30 for our company, 4 o'clock for the public at Parthmore Funeral Home in New Cumberland, followed by a private family-only graveside service at 9:30 on Wednesday, the 30th. And then from there, we'll have a celebration of life where everybody, the public, is invited at the Willows of Ashcombe Farms Mansion, starting at 11 o'clock on Wednesday, the 30th. I hope you can come, say goodbye, and then hopefully at some point be able to come to the Ashcombe Farms and celebrate his life. I thank you all for listening. And like he said many times, let's go to work and let's kick some ass. Thank you.